tonight, His Majesty starts a European tour where he will meet with senior EU and NATO officials and heads to Morocco Tuesday on a two-day working visit. The Iraqi Minister of Tourism and Antiquities urges a U.S.-led military coalition to use air power to protect the country's antiquities from Daesh terrorists. And to mark International Women's Day, the National Center for Human Rights urges amendments to laws that discriminate against women in line with international criteria and standards. Good evening and welcome to a new edition of the news. His Majesty the King started a European tour that will take him to Brussels and Strasbourg, where he will meet with senior EU and NATO officials. In Brussels, His Majesty will meet Belgian Prime Minister Charles Michel to discuss bilateral relations and means to enhance them in various fields, in addition to regional and international developments. He will also meet Jens Stoltenberg, NATO's Secretary General, to discuss Jordan's field of cooperation with the organization. King Abdullah will then visit Strasbourg, where he will address the European Parliament on Tuesday in a speech that will focus on key challenges facing the region, and will later meet with the Parliament's President Martin Schulz. His Majesty will also hold talks with President of the European Commission, Jean-Claude Juncker, and EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Federica Mogherini, to discuss bilateral ties in addition to developments in the Middle East. His Royal Highness Prince Faisal bin Al Hussein was sworn in as regent in the presence of cabinet members. On Tuesday, at the end of his European tour, His Majesty, accompanied by Her Majesty Queen Rania, head to Morocco on a two-day working visit at the invitation of King Mohammed VI. His Majesty's meeting with the King Mohammed are expected to deal with ways of enhancing cooperation between the two kingdoms, as well as current regional and international developments. Earlier, before departing Jordan and during a stop at the Prime Ministry, where he chaired part of the cabinet meeting, His Majesty called for continued work to improve the performance of government programs and institutions to provide better services to citizens that meet their high expectations. King Abdullah highlighted the need for the provision of prompt and high-quality services, especially by executive departments that are in touch with citizens on a daily basis through capacity building of departments and staff. He also urged the ministers to get out of their offices and spend more time in the field in order to be in direct communication with citizens. His Majesty also called for speeding up the e-government program and stressed the need for close coordination between the three branches of government. High on His Majesty's demand was the execution of a national strategy to fight extremism. U.S. and coalition forces conducted 12 airstrikes against Daesh terrorists in Iraq and one in Syria in the past 24 hours. According to a military statement, the Syria strike targeted tactical units and fighting positions near Kobani. And in Iraq, 2 airstrikes hit near Al-Huwayja, 4 strikes hit Fallujah, while other strikes targeted positions near Haditha, Kirkuk and Mosul, destroying tactical units, fighting positions, vehicles and other targets. 2 strikes near Tel Afar hit a factory of assembling improvised explosive devices, according to the statement. On the ground in Iraq, meanwhile, Iraqi security forces and the Shiite militia fighting the Daesh terrorist group took control of the center of the town of Ad-Dur on the southern outskirts of Tikrit. The army and militiamen struggled to drive out the terrorists entrenched in the building in the western section of the town. Military commanders said the army and militia, known as Hashd Sha'bi, has succeeded in recapturing the central area where government headquarters are located. Security forces and Shiite militia fighters have captured about a third of the village of Albu al-Jisur, south of Tikrit. However, in Iraq, a series of bomb attacks took place. A bomb exploded near a busy street in Baghdad, killing at least 4 people, and 3 were killed at Al-Husseiniya district when a bomb went off near a restaurant. And 2 passerbys were killed after a bomb went off in the town of Madain, while 3 others were killed and 17 wounded when a car bomb exploded in Mahmoudiyah. Meanwhile, Iraq urged a U.S.-led military coalition to use air power to protect the country's antiquities from Daesh terrorists looting and destroying some of the world's greatest archaeological treasures. Iraqi Minister of Tourism and Antiquities Adil Shirshab said the coalition was not doing enough to save Iraq's priceless heritage, urging an end to the pillaging Daesh. Attacked the 2,000-year-old city of Hatra in northern Iraq yesterday with bulldozers, only a few days after assaulting the ancient Assyrian city of Nimrud. And earlier this month, video footage showed them ransacking a Mosul museum, smashing statues and sculptures. Shishab and the head of Iraq's state body of antiquities and heritage said Iraqi authorities were still trying to assess the full extent of damage in Hatra and Ninwa.
We appeal and we hold the international coalition responsible, and I'm sure many others share my opinion, that slow action by the international coalition against these groups and their crimes has encouraged them to attack, destroy and pillage.
And over to Syria, where an airstrike in the northwest of the country killed at least 9 terrorists from Al-Qaeda-linked Nusra Front in an area near the Turkish border. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights and 4 of the dead were foreign fighters, and the target has been hit with 3 missiles. And a gunman attacked Daesh terrorists in the eastern town of Al-Mayadeen overnight, killing more than 12. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights reported that 2 separate groups of gunmen carried out the attacks in Deir ez-Zor province. The first group of assailants opened on a Daesh patrol, killing 12 before attacking members of the group guarding a courthouse. A second group of gunmen attacked a Daesh checkpoint in the same town, killing and injuring an unknown number of terrorists. There was no immediate claim of responsibility for the attack, but Syrian state media attributed similar attacks in January to popular resistance to Daesh. And in a move by Britain to stop airlines carrying passengers who may be traveling to join Daesh in Syria and Iraq, new laws will be introduced next week. Under the new rule, the Interior Ministry would be able to prevent airlines from carrying passengers believed to be traveling to take part in terrorism-related activities en route such as those into Syria. The rules are due to be included in legislation being put before the British Parliament this week. They would require airlines to seek permission to carry such passengers who are high risk. Thousands of foreigners from more than 80 countries have joined Daesh and other radical groups in Syria and Iraq, including the Britain known as Jihadi John. And coming up after the break, violence erupts in Egypt and countries around the world mark International Women's Day.
خليل الزيت خليني احطه بالصحن.
أجفل طعامهم وعزة نفسهم. كية أم علي لعيش كريم.
A series of bombings killed 1 and wounded 9 others in Egypt's second city of Alexandria. 1 person was killed and 5 were wounded in the first blast outside of a supermarket in the Sayyouf district of eastern Alexandria. A bomb outside the police station in central Alexandria wounded 4, while another near another police station was disarmed by security forces. A 4th bomb went off near the Bab Sharq police station without injuring or killing anyone. Egypt is facing an Islamist insurgency that has killed hundreds of police officers and soldiers since the army ousted President Mohamed Morsi in 2013 following mass protests against his rule. Chad and Niger launched a joint army operation against Boko Haram in Nigeria, intensifying a regional offensive designed to defeat the terrorist group. It is the first incursion deep into Nigeria by troops from Niger, which have so far only fought Boko Haram in the border area. Chad has already sent troops many kilometers inside northeastern Nigeria and has won territory back from the group near the Nigeria-Cameroon border. Niger military sources said troops were attacking Boko Haram in Nigeria's Borno state, but it was not clear how many troops were participating in the offensive. In Germany, over 3,000 anti-nuclear protesters gathered in the southern town of Neckar-Weinstein, site of a nuclear plant, to remember the Fukushima disaster 4 years ago. Protesters held banners and chanted "Switch off" and "Fukushima out of control" while carrying mock-up coffins as they marched toward the nuclear plant and called for an end of nuclear energy. The protests took the Fukushima disaster as a cause to remind politicians in Germany of the planned energy transition. Japan's nuclear reactor were shut down after the Fukushima incident, but the Japanese government said it's reviewing the restart of some of their nuclear reactors, which relies on imported source of energy. Today, people around the world marked International Women's Day. During this weekly prayer at the Vatican, Pope Francis sent a special greeting and blessings to women around the globe. The Pope addressed the vital contribution women make to society and said they should not be marginalized. Here's more.
A special blessing for women around the world as Pope Francis marks International Women's Day in St. Peter's Square.
Today, on March 8th, I send a greeting to all the women.
This special day, he said, is a chance to reaffirm the importance of women everywhere.
A world where women are marginalized is a sterile world because not only do women carry new life with them, but they also have a capacity to see beyond things. They see over and above. They have a capacity to help us see the world through different eyes, to feel things with hearts that are more creative, more patient, more tender.
Pope Francis has often said he wants women to have a greater role in the Roman Catholic Church. Although he says a ban on women priests is definitive, he wants to appoint more nuns and other women to senior positions at the Vatican.
Buon pranzo e arrivederci.
Here at home, the National Center for Human Rights urged amendments to laws that discriminate against women in line with international criteria and standards. The center called for a national plan to women's participation in public life through increasing women's quota in the House of Representatives and to appoint more women in leadership positions. In a statement issued on the occasion of International Women's Day, the center said that despite those rights that are guaranteed under the Constitution, women continue to face numerous challenges and violations of their rights. Inequality in job opportunities, especially in senior positions, as well as in training, wages and promotion, are some of the violations that the center stated. Women's participation in the workforce in Jordan continues to lag at 14% and is considered one of the lowest rates in the Arab world. Two Swiss pilots will attempt an around-the-world journey on a solar-powered airplane. The trip is expected to last for 5 months and is aimed at promoting clean technology in the aviation sector. Made of a lightweight carbon fiber frame, the Solar Impulse aircraft will carry zero fuel and produce zero carbon emissions. The airplane will be powered entirely from the 17,000 solar cells embedded in the wing, spanning 72 meters. The flight will take off from the UAE capital of Abu Dhabi, and the final leg will include a stopover in southern Europe or North Africa before returning back to Abu Dhabi. The pilots were excited but nervous about the Pioneer flight.
This excitement, I mean, really, when you realize something that that is deep in your mind and deep in your body, but also responsibility, because it's 12 years of work. A lot of people and spend a lot of time, of their free time in this project. So, you know, there's a strong sense of responsibility to make sure that all the decisions which will be taken will be the right one.
And over to the world of fashion in Paris, Kenzo invited the world of fashion to wrap up for a magical wonder through a forest as it presented its latest autumn-winter collection at Paris Fashion Week. Graphic jacquards and shearling wraps protected the models from the winter cold laid over dresses and trousers and floral prints. Co-creative director Umberto Leon said the collection was intended to convey a sense of togetherness with the models and their natural environments. Strap on a corset, boys, was Vivienne Westwood's cry with her latest catwalk show, a rocking ode to cross-dressing revealed at the Paris Fashion Week. Though the British designer said all her collection were unisex, the most recent drove the point home as strapping male models strode down the runway in stilettos joined by women in grey lounge suits with turns up. The Queen of Punk likes to get people talking, and she told journalists before the show that that was exactly what her latest collection was intended to do. Andy Murray beat John Isner in straight sets, stealing a victory of Great Britain in their Davis Cup World Group first round tie against the US. Playing in front of a passionate crowd in Glasgow, the world number 5 beat Isner 7-6, 6-3, 7-6 in 2 hours and 31 minutes. Murray saved 3 set points in a hard-fought 63-minute first set before taking it in the tie break. The second set was more comfortable for the Scot. However, Murray took the third set on a tie break to complete his victory. Poland's Michael Kwiatkowski won the Paris-Nice Prolonged, narrowly edging out the Australia's Rohan Dennis. Kwiatkowski's time was a fraction of a second ahead of Dennis, who holds the world record for the furthest distance traveled in an hour. 3 times world time trial champion Tony Martin was a further 7 seconds back on the 6.7-kilometer course. The iconic race to the sun covers about 196 kilometers between Saint-Rémy-les-Chevreuses and Contres. And finally, relatively cold in most regions tonight with northwesterly light to moderate winds. Moderate conditions continue tomorrow across most regions with northwesterly to northeasterly moderate winds. The Gulf of Aqaba should expect fair conditions tomorrow with with northerly moderate wind and calm seas. Next are the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. And to end the news, here's a recap for our top stories. His Majesty starts a European tour where he will meet with senior EU and NATO officials and heads to Morocco Tuesday on a 2-day working visit. The Iraqi Minister of Tourism and Antiquity urges a US-led military coalition to use air power to protect the country's antiquities from Daesh terrorists. And to mark International Women's Day, the National Center for Human Rights urges amendments to law that discriminate against women in line with international criteria and standards. And with this, we come to an end. I'm Farah Ajlani. On behalf of the News at 10 team, I wish all the ladies a happy Women's Day. Have a good night.